Hey guys, it's Rush. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel. This video today, I'm doing an overview of the Sanwa Supply USB gamepad. Now this company is not to be confused with Sanwa, who do the arcade sticks and joysticks. They are Sanwa Denshi, I believe. This is a completely different company, just similar or same name. This pad was purchased off eBay from a Japanese seller. It took a few weeks to get here. It didn't take too long actually, delivery. I haven't been able to find any other retailers, local, so EU retailers, selling this controller. So this is the pad. Out of the box you get a CD with drivers, no software, and you get a manual. I think the manual's in Japanese. I do apologise if I've got it wrong. I got it wrong last time for another video. There is some English in the manual, but it's predominantly in another language. The one I have is in a gloss finish. There is a matte version available as well. I didn't know there was a matte version available. I probably would have gone with the matte one just because I feel over time the gloss will start to scratch, but it's not a big issue for me. So just be cautious of that when you do order a pad if you plan to get one. The two things that stand out to me the most about this pad are the buttons. So I generally review 6-button fight pads on this channel. So 6 buttons on the face of the pad. This has 7, which is very unusual. Also is the design. The design, it looks like it's based off of the PlayStation style design, so you've got the 2 grips on either side. This pad has grooves. It's very similar to the Hori Fighting Commander. It's got quite a deep groove there, and I really like that. And the reason I like it is because my middle fingers can sit comfortably in those grooves, so the pad is really nicely secure within my hands, and it's a good size as well. It's a very good size. It's not considered small. It's considered like a standard pad size, so it's perfect really. I think in terms of ergonomics size, I think it's very well designed. So speaking of the button layout, so you have 7 buttons as mentioned here. You have 4 shoulder buttons, and your triggers can be pressed, so they do press as well, so you can use them as buttons. 13 is your back button and 15 is the start button. So there is a turbo function. I think the mode button is used to switch it from X input to D input, so I won't need to use that. And I suspect that Clear just gets rid of any turbo settings. So how do the buttons feel? Well, the D-pad itself, you can see it's in line with the buttons on the face of the pad. I think that's very important for controllers. The main input method, I feel, should be in line, especially for fighters as well, with the buttons. So my thumbs sit naturally in the same location on both sides. That's really nice. The D-pad does feel very good. So it's circular, but then it's got grooves on the edges, and I can feel where I'm pressing. I have a big amount of surface area to press on as well, so that's good. It's not super sensitive. The inputs themselves feel great. You can feel exactly the direction you press as you press it. The buttons, there's nothing special to really say. That they're buttons. I can feel when I've pressed, I can feel when I release. Nothing super special. They're not extremely sensitive. They're not too tough to press. So they're just standard buttons really. They feel good, as you expect. The one thing I will say about the buttons is they are very small and they're very close together. Now that, I don't particularly like that. I think the buttons being bigger and more spaced out would have been a better decision. It would have made the pad a little bit bigger, I guess, to fit those in. I suppose because they fit a 7th button there, that makes things even more tricky to fit those buttons in if they were bigger. But yeah, even that 16th button right there, it's very close to your 5 buttons. So if you're mapping that to, say, a gameplay mechanic in the fighting game you're playing, you could easily press that by mistake, or if you're trying to go for a 5, you might get a 16. I don't particularly like this, but I think if your execution's good, it shouldn't cause too much of a problem. The shoulder buttons, really good design here. So you've got big shoulder buttons, no triggers. You've got a lot of space between the two, they're not super close. Even the front ones, the front buttons, shoulder buttons, are large enough so that you won't miss them, you'll always press them. But these at the back are massive, and I love this. I do feel like they've copied perhaps the Hori Fighting Commander, because it's exactly the same on the Hori Fighting Commander, the old one. So maybe where the inspirations come from with the large surface area to make bigger buttons. But yeah, it feels really good. And like I said, with the way it sits in my hand, with my middle fingers at the back of the pad, index fingers at the top, and my thumbs positioned nicely, I've got to say, they've nailed it. It does feel fantastic in the hands. I really like the way it feels. So I'm logged into Street Fighter 6 to show you the button mappings. So I have my punches mapped at the top here and my kicks mapped to the bottom. So light punch is 4, medium punch is 5, heavy punch is 6, light kick has 1, medium kick has 2, and heavy kick has 3. Now, this button 16 seems to be the same button as right stick when you press right stick down. So that's where your button 16 comes into things. So that's pretty good. You can map that as a base button rather than having to rely on pressing your stick button down, which I don't recommend for fighting games. The shoulder buttons is interesting. So 7 and 9 are mapped the same as 6 and 3. So you can't map these buttons independently from these buttons. That's a real shame. There's no way, from what I can see, to change that configuration on the pad, and there is no software you can install to change the mappings. So if I press 7, for example, you should see my heavy punch disappear, I think. Yeah, so heavy punch is gone now. You can see it appeared there. If I press 9, my heavy kick should disappear. Yep, heavy kick's gone. So that's a bit of a shame. You can't map those independently, but the triggers are fine. You can set your LT and RT independently, so that's cool. So the way I would map this pad would be, again, punches at the top, kicks on the bottom row, drive impact as LT, 3 punches as 16, and 3 kicks as RT. So that's how I'd map this. And this is not a standard configuration for me. This is a bit different to what I normally have. So ideally, I'd want punches there, kicks there, 3 punches, 3 kicks, and drive impact here. That would be my optimal layout for a 6-button fight pad. But you can't do that on this pad. So I've had to put my 3 punches here. It's very weird, but I think that's the optimal way for me to use this controller. The other thing to note as well, you can map button 14. It doesn't make any sense because button 14 is so far away, but button 14 will be your left stick down. It's a shame they didn't put this here. So if they had like 14 there, 16 there, the buttons are already close together as it is. It wouldn't have made any difference. Why having that there makes sense, I don't know. To me, it doesn't make sense because you're not going to have your thumb reaching over, either thumb reaching over to press that button when you're in the midst of a high pressure situation in a fighting game. So that's a bit whack. So with everything said, how does it feel in game? It does feel really good. The D-pad is surprisingly comfortable, accurate. I had a feeling it was going to be bad, but no, it's really good. I do like the little ridges on the edges of the D-pad because it helps, how to explain, my thumb, I can feel exactly where I'm pointed at, what position I'm on in terms of where I'm pressing, but because it extends outside the circle, it does feel like the D-pad's bigger than it actually looks, if that makes sense. It does feel really, really nice. I'm very happy with the way it feels in terms of the shape of the pad, the position of the D-pad, and the inputs. It feels super clean. Yeah, it does feel really good. It feels very, very good. Inputting your moves, your combos, as long as you don't have issues with your inputs in regards to the buttons, because the buttons are super close. I can feel my thumb. I can feel my thumb moving around. I'm not even doing it consciously. I'm trying to figure out where my thumb is before I input buttons sometimes. That, I guess, will come with time as I get used to the controller. Other than the layout, similarly to the Sega Saturn Pro controller, this is another fantastic pad. Very, very good. So to summarize, a very impressive fight pad. The design in terms of how it sits and feels, the shape of it is fantastic. One of the best fight pads I think I've had in terms of shape and design. D-pad also is fantastic. One of the better D-pads. Very, very accurate. Feels great. Very impressed with that. The buttons, I do like the idea of the 7 buttons being there. That's really cool. But again, very small. So that could be a problem for some people that don't have the best execution. I don't know why button 14 is there. That's a missed opportunity. It makes no sense. Button 13 is your back button. Button 15 is start. That should be over here. There's no use to anyone being there. The shoulders, in terms of the shoulder button design, fantastic. It's just a shame that these overlap with these 2 buttons there, 6 and 3. So that is a shame. But for people that like a layout where they don't really use these ones, if they focus more on just the triggers, then it won't be an issue for you at all. That's a me issue, not a pad issue. So that's it for this video, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Any questions, any queries, as always, give me a shout, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.